this week goes to Democratic Congressman Joe Sestak of Pennsylvania. Once, and we can show you a photo, a three-star Admiral. You see Admiral Sestak there. He is the highest-ranking former military officer ever elected. Thanks for joining us today.
Good to be here, John.
I want to start with some pretty startling things the Vice President said, former Vice President Cheney said earlier today on the program. And I asked him quite simply, we know he disagrees with President Obama's views on the war on terrorism, but I put the question to him, are Americans less safe because of the policies of the new president? Let's listen. Do you believe the President of the United States has made Americans less safe?
I do.
2 words, I do. Pretty big thing for anyone to say about the President, the Commander-in-Chief. Do you agree with Vice President Cheney?
No, I don't. And that's a pretty damning 2 words that he said. What he's actually suggesting is that we have to continue to compromise on what is actually the source of Americans' greatness, our principles, in order to protect those principles, rather than admitting that what's really endangering our national security today is a military that is so overstretched from the tragic misadventure in Iraq that we can't even, John, respond to any other contingency in this world, and an economy that's in tatters that is actually causing a global recession. Most of all, that the power of our ideals is one that this world no longer looks to us in order to implement across the globe. How can we say that keeping a man in a black hole forever, perpetually in a black hole, and saying let's torture when we decide to, is what America stands for? We're a nation of laws, not of men, in the executive branch that interpret it. So no, I strongly disagree.
And I just want to make the point to our viewers, if they didn't get it at the beginning, as someone who wore the uniform, a 3-star Admiral, and now is, yes, a Democrat, but a member of Congress, you are convinced that nothing on that list I went through with Vice President Cheney, closing Guantanamo Bay, closing the black sites, all of those things, you're fine with all of it?
Absolutely. I headed the Navy's anti-terrorism unit after 9/11, where we were implementing the new types of processes needed to best address our security in this global war of terror. I also was Director of Defense Policy in President Clinton's White House, where I saw the intelligence flow to the Commander-in-Chief, and absolutely not. To say that we're going to place someone in a place where the law does not protect them, and that we can actually torture someone with waterboarding in Poland, as we have, and placed in a black site over there run by the CIA. No, we can have better security if we are able to, most important of all, protect the principles that I and my brethren, that I went to protect those principles, are protected themselves if we are ever captured. And that's the ingredient that was lost by this past administration. I respect his service, I do, but I significantly disagree with the approach he took outside the law to actually take the judiciary branch that interprets our laws and say that, no, the executive branch can interpret the law. I disagree.
Very blunt criticism from the former Vice President in the war on terrorism, yet surprising almost support for President Obama's approach now in Iraq. I asked the former Vice President if he was comfortable with the plan to bring most of the troops home by 2010. He said as of now he is. He believes the President is consulting with the commanders on the ground, and he wouldn't use the term mission accomplished because we all know that's politically loaded from the prior administration, but he did say this.
We've accomplished nearly everything we set out to do.
Have we accomplished, has the United States accomplished everything the Bush administration set out to do in Iraq?
The Bush administration may have created, after 6, 7 long years, some stability in Iraq, but they have not kept the most precious constitutional duty of the presidency in highest regard, which is to enhance the security of America. We now have the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff that months ago said Afghanistan is spiraling downward. And the head of the CIA over a year ago said Al-Qaeda, the Al-Qaeda that struck us, now has a safe haven in Pakistan. And we do not have a military that's done any training on counterinsurgency, except counterinsurgency, for the last 4 years. 27,000 troops sit in South Korea, ready to defend against a possible attack from North Korea. The divisions of Army troops ready to deploy there. Ready to deploy there, cannot. And so I sit back and I say they looked at Iraq as the determinant of national security for America, rather than saying what's in the best interest of America's whole cloth, whole fabric of national security. And if the strategy in Iraq was harming it, change it. So yes, we are now redeploying safely, deliberately, having to now resurrect our interest and protect them in Afghanistan and, unfortunately, in the most dangerous place in the world, Pakistan, and resurrect our army. The cost of this war is something that I strongly believe has far, far hurt us. Now, we're going to recover because we're Americans. But Iraq was just one piece of our security, and this past administration failed to realize that.
We have less than a minute left, sir. I want to turn to the economy. You are a Democrat who represents a formerly Republican district. It's a pretty tough swing district.
Republican.
Still Republican, you say, suburban Philadelphia. A lot of Democrats like you who want to support this president, we're beginning to pick up more and more frustration, saying you're going home and starting to hear it from the people. What's all this spending in Washington, the bailout money, the stimulus money? Capture for me, and I'm sorry we have less than a minute left, capture for me your concern as you come back to Washington and want to support this president. Are there places where you think he's maybe spending too much or too much government?
My concern is that we will not be bold enough, that we may not be aggressive enough, because policymakers, Congress and the presidency, have been shooting behind the rabbit too much. This is when we need leaders to stand tall in Washington, because not ideology, but pragmatic approaches, looking at the modeling, demonstrates that only if we intervene strongly by the U.S. government, the single global haven, AAA rated institution in the world that can borrow at a low rate and actually get us quickly through this recession. What if I learned anything in the military is if you're in the middle of a storm, act quickly to get out of that storm as rapidly as you can. We're going to burn some gas, some deficit money, but the damage to our economy exponentially greater if we don't do even more.
Admiral Sestak, Congressman Sestak, thanks for coming in today for the last word. Thank you.